So every now and then you get a chance to meet Catherine, who's got some great ideas about how people can change their lives starting at 18. Catherine, tell everyone who you are.
Hi, I am Dr. Katherine Gilstein, and I am author, podcast host, assistant professor, graduate program director, and background about myself is I spent 20 years in finance and banking, retail banking, insurance, investments, loans, annuities, things like that. And I spent the last 10 years in academia. So teaching undergrad students, business courses, marketing courses, operations management, human resource management, things like that. And now I run the grad program for organizational leadership. So I get to work with grad students as well.
Awesome.
And the biggest thing that I had in the 10 years that I was teaching academia, and my primary focus going into academia was teaching economics. And the biggest question I had is I want to invest money. And I'm thinking, well, that's great, but you don't know the difference between a credit card and a debit card. So maybe we should start there. So that was like the whole premise of my book, which was published in August of 24. And the name of the book is You're 18 Now What? And it's a new adult's guide to credit, insurance, investing, job searches, and other real world shit. So as you and I spoke about briefly, is financial literacy in the country, and that only 21 or 23 states in the country have financial literacy as a component for high school, which I find crazy, especially with the importance of it. So, as important as money is, nobody wants to talk about
Yeah, I
it.
couldn't agree with you
And
more.
I
I think
think that's where the issue is.
yeah, I think our educational system needs a entire rebirth, and
Overhaul.
I think that's coming.
Absolutely.
I think it's coming, but I think yeah,
I agree. Slowly but surely. Are there the basics that we need? Reading, math, English, history? Absolutely, yes. But with the abundance of information, with the abundance of technology, with the abundance of having a 16-year-old person that can literally post content and get paid, maybe they don't want to go to college. So you need to be able to teach financial literacy, entrepreneurship, basic business skills, and how to run a business if that's something that these younger generation is interested in doing. And a lot of people want to work for themselves.
yeah. Well, not only that, but I mean, I think what you really touched on is teaching people the basics of money and literally giving them the ability to understand this is what a credit card is. This is
Correct.
what this is what a debit card is. This is how to manage credit card debt. This is what your credit score is.
Right. And I think a lot of people don't even know what the credit score system looks like. Like how do you get credit?
I'll
How
be
do you
honest with you,
gain credit? How do you build credit?
I'm pretty
There's
confused about it too. Like I don't even know what. Sometimes you don't have enough credit, so you have to go
Mhm.
out and get some more credit cards. Sometimes you need credit history. Like if people understood how credit scores actually work, they'd be like, okay, this makes sense.
Right. And there's a big difference between good credit and bad credit. So,
Yeah,
good credit is leasing a car, good credit is owning a car, good credit is owning a house. Bad credit is having a credit card with a limit of $10,000 and you owe 8,000 of the 10,000. That's a bad credit. So
that is
just
true.
learning the basics of those is, a big deal. And I think, like I said, with information industry the way it is and the way tech the way it is, a lot of the generation, it used to be they would just swipe the debit card over and over and over, but now it's gotten to the point where you could just take your phone and just tap, and you just go to the store, tap, paid, tap, paid, tap, paid. And they've made it so much easier to spend money, but nobody talks about saving money
Or making money, like
or
literally
making money.
creating things that make you money.
Yeah, so that's another thing that I touch on in the book, and I always think about it. It's the difference between saving and savings. So if you can control your saving now, you can control your savings in the future. It's the
Yep.
difference between debt and debt. If you can control your debt now, you can control your debt in the future. And then it's the difference between income and wealth. Income is the amount of money that you make. Wealth is what you build while you're sleeping.
That is
So
true.
um, those basic things are just not taught in the school system. So if we can get the financial literacy information, if we can get the economic empowerment information to the high schools, to the colleges, especially for first gen college students. So you might have, that 35-year-old mom that literally has a teenager and is 15 years old and thinking about go to school, and the mom is not sure, well, how do I navigate this? How do I help my child make a better life, and give them an easier life than I had to do? So how do I find loans? How do I look for student loans? How do I get my kid into college or trade school or wherever it is they want to go and what they want to pursue?
And by the way, since you're teaching college and stuff, one of the things that I just got done talking on a podcast about literally right before ours is I think the game plan that people are being given about going to college, getting in debt for $100,000 in student loans, and then that game plan, which has been sold as a good game plan for decades now, I think that game plan doesn't fit everybody. In fact, I don't think it fits a lot of people these days. And I think it's actually bad advice. I think it's a bad strategy for people.
Absolutely. I did a podcast a couple of weeks ago, um, and we spoke about marketable degrees and thinking about what it is that you want to do. I happen to love school. I always knew that I wanted to go to college. Years later, I always wanted an MBA. So it was a personal goal, not a professional goal. Once I got my MBA, then I was working in a bank during the day. I was an adjunct professor at night. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I love teaching. I love seeing the light bulb go off. And I need to do this. So I wound up going for my PhD, which took 5 years, but hey, it is what it is. But I did my MBA in my 40s, did my PhD. I was 50. So, did it take a while? Yes. But that path is not for everyone. So I really do stress that in my book. If you're child, and I think that's where the disconnect is the disconnect is between parents and their kids having the conversation of what they want to do. Not, I want you to go to college, you're going to go for 4 years, I'm going to pay this and you're going to do that, because that's not going to make the student happy. So what is it that the student wants to do? If they love to be an engineer, great, then you need to go to college to get an
Well,
engineering
some
degree.
some students are great with their hands. Maybe they should be a carpenter and build things or build houses. Maybe they're great.
Absolutely. I have a brother who did exactly that. When we were kids, he would literally take apart the vacuum and put it back together. And my mother
I'm
would be
that
like, "Oh
guy.
my
I'm
God,
that
what are
guy.
you
I took
doing?"
apart my mom's TV and I literally
Yes.
had two bulbs left over, but the TV still worked and I couldn't realize it. And I realized, holy shit, this was the yellow bulb because back in the day they had bulbs and we were missing all the
Mm-hmm.
yellow. So all the TV, my mom came home, she's like, what's wrong with the TV? And then the next day when she was gone for a couple hours, I took it apart again and put the bulbs back that were missing. And then the TV was fixed. And she's like, have you been playing around with the TV? I'm like, listen, had a little bit of an issue
Absolutely.
extra parts. I put the extra parts in. We're back to normal.
No, absolutely. And like I said, one of my brothers is that person where he could just take apart anything, put it back together. And he's literally spent the last 20 years doing improvements on other people's houses. He's built, sheds and barns and wine cellars and, kitchen and bathroom remodeling. But, that's what he's great at. So college wasn't for him. Trade school was for him. Another thing to think about is that if you're not sure what you want to do, don't spend 70 grand to go to a private 4 year university. Go to community college, get those general education credits out of the way, see what you like, see what you don't. You can save an awful lot of money that way. So looking at, marketable degrees, but I
Well, here's
think
the crazy
it
thing too. You can do those
Mhm.
those courses online now, and you don't have to go to
Absolutely.
a local JC. You can do it online.
Hmm.
So, if people want education, there's a myriad of ways to get education: YouTube videos, online education,
Hmm.
books. I mean, the library is always free. People forget.
Oh,
You can go to the library.
absolutely.
I'll
I
teach you.
still go to the library.
I'll tell you something. When I was younger, I was 18 years old. I got made fun of because I had very crude language skills. And I was just rough around the edges. And a guy that I respected a ton, Arthur Barbado, said, Chris, why don't you go to Barnes and Noble, grab yourself a cup of coffee, and just read whatever book you like. And if you don't want to read the whole book, read a chapter. or read a couple of pages, and then grab another book and another magazine and whatever you want, and just do that on your Saturdays. And I did it one Saturday, and I went and I remember like it was yesterday. I grabbed a blueberry muffin, a big blueberry muffin. It was huge, and it was actually the oversized one. It was delicious. Way to go, Barnes and Noble. And a cup of,
Nice.
and I went and I got all these books that I found interesting. I put them in this pile here, books, magazines, mostly books. And then I slowly went from this pile, opened it up, looked, read, and put it in a pile here. And I literally went from this pile to this pile here. And then when I was done, and I did that for a couple of Saturdays. And one day, the girl that was the barista came up to me. She's like, "Hey, what are you doing?" And I'm like, "I'm learning." And she's like, "Yeah, but why do you do it that way instead of just grabbing one book and reading it?" And I told her, I said, "I don't know what it is, but I don't want to read the whole book. I want to get something out of it that I like, and then I want to go to something else." It's to me that was like a buffet. And one book, one book gave me sausage, another book gave me pizza, another book was salad. Each one had something different. And for me, it was the chance to experience a little bit from all those books that gave me this vast knowledge on a variety of subject matter. And after a while, she was like, "That's like kind of a cool idea." And the funny thing is, I was getting all this knowledge, like really tons of knowledge, kind of for free. I mean, it cost me a muffin and some coffee every now and then, but at the end of the day,
Right.
I would sit there and plow through it. Now, after a while, Barnes and Noble that I went to, they were like, "Listen, buddy, can't make all this mess for us, and we have to put all these books back. So if you're going to do this, we want you to put the books back where you got them." I said, "No problem." So I just went and put the books back because they were complaining about it. But it was funny too. I looked around, and I think the its situation is the same today. I was one of the few people in there. Like there may have been 12 people in this whole Barnes and Noble. And I thought
Mhm.
to myself, I'm like, there's so much knowledge here that's just waiting for somebody to like open it up and absorb it and feed. And I tell people, you worry about what you put in your body for food because you want to look good in a bikini or a bathing suit or at the gym. But why don't you worry about what you put in your head? You got to feed
Oh,
your
absolutely.
I tell people all the time, you got
Absolutely.
to feed your brain good stuff. You got to, like, I take all these vitamins, and by the way, this stuff is the bomb. It's called K21. It's like, it looks like crude oil, but it's like 21 minerals and herbs. And I add that to like beet juice, and it's gorgeous. But
Okay.
people all the time, they forget you got to feed your brain. Your brain's like a Pac-Man. It loves to eat data. And you got to give your brain
Mhm.
all this good information and knowledge. And people stop doing that. There comes a point in their life where they stop feeding their brain and their brain becomes mush. And sad to say, we don't teach that to kids either. I tell kids all the time, "Hey, have you guys gone and hung out at like the Barnes and Noble or whatever bookstores out there? Buddy, there's so much stuff there you can learn that'll make you strong and mentally sharp and really intelligent." And people are like, "Just hang out?" I'm like, "Yeah, they even sell coffee and muffins, like big muffins, not the cheap little ones. They give me like the big one where it's like over the side and it's got the
Over the side. Absolutely.
oh
Nice.
my God."
Absolutely.
And
Totally agree.
blueberries, when you pull it out, they somehow get the giant blueberries, and you're like, "Oh, it's so good." And then the double chocolate one, oh my God, that rah.
Oh my God, that one's my favorite. The double chocolate. Oh my God, with the giant chunks of chocolate in it. So
Whoever
good.
makes those
So
muffins,
good.
where literally the muffin is here, but the top of it is just like this monstrous spaceship from Mars. That whoever
Mhm.
makes those, they're fucking genius. Like, how do you get those? And then they put the crumbly stuff on top.
I don't know how they get those. They're really good though.
I have to pick up a book one day and how do you make a muffin?
We'll have to find out how to make a muffin like that. But you talk about feeding your brain, and I did a podcast segment on money and mindfulness because how you think about money. So how you grew up, who you grew up around, what was what were your mental hangups about money? What are your money blocks? What keeps you from, doing what you need to do? Because it's very easy to say, okay, we're going to go away for the weekend in June. And I'd be like, okay, great. I could put away money for that. That's fine because that's short term. It's right there. But when you say you need to save for retirement, it's so far away and people just don't grasp that. But it's those same thing that you talked about, putting food in your body. Like you can't go to the gym 2 days and be in great shape. You can't eat healthy for 2 days and be healthy. The same way you can't, not spend money for 2 days and then have savings. It doesn't work like that. It's a constant. It's an everyday. It's a habit that you build of, you know, doing that over and over and over. And it's not perfection. It's just consistency.
Yep.
And I think that's what's lacking, is that there's just too much out there. And I see a lot of students running from one thing to the next without fully grasping that first thing that they're looking at. So that talks about, what you said about, getting information. What do I want out of this one particular book? What am I going to get out of this? I'm going to sit in a class for 15 weeks. Well, I don't want it to be a waste of your freaking time either. I want you to say, well, what am I going to take from this course for 15 weeks that I'm going to use? And I hope that I hear my students, later on down the road, saying, oh, yeah, I heard you. I listened to what you said. And it does come back. And I do have a few students that do listen to me and have listened to me over the years. And I got, I think, 4 or 5 different people this past summer who texted me and said, hey, professor, just want to let you know that I just bought my first house. They're 26 years old. I'm like, yes, this is like, yes, you were listening. This is awesome. But the information is there. And I think what's lacking is getting the information to where it needs to be. And if you're privileged to the information because you come from a wealthy area, you come from a higher net worth, that information is shared. But when you grow up in the inner city, you don't get that. So I grew up in Bensonhurst, Brooklyn. You don't get that. Nobody talks about it. You ask your mom, well, what about the electric bill? Well, that's not your business. You just worry about being a student. But I need to know these things for when I want to move out. How much can I look to spend? What should I be, looking for? And I think that's where the disconnect is. It's not that we need to tell our children our business of what we spend on bills, but you can bring a 6-year-old to the store and say, hey, do you want a toy or 2 books? And there's the economic decision right there, scarcity and choice. So what am I getting? This money is going to allow me to buy 2 books, or this money will allow me to buy 1 toy. Which one do I want? You need to make the decision.
Well, I always tell people, do you remember the story of Johnny Appleseed?
Vaguely. Wow, that was a long time ago.
Well,
Oof.
I'm a long time ago. I literally am a long time ago. So
Me too.
Johnny Appleseed used to run around. It's a fable. I don't know if he actually existed, but he would
Mhm.
like literally take apple seeds and he would plant them. And one day somebody asked him, they're like, you plant all these seeds, but there's no trees. He's like, give it time.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, makes sense. Planting seeds.